After its release of The Brutalist in late 2024, the movie has garnered a lot of well-deserved praise. Despite its massive runtime, clocking in at well over 3 hours, the tension and drama of the well-reviewed The Brutalist mean that it more than earns each act. Already, the cast and crew of The Brutalist have racked up Academy Award nominations, and the film itself has been nominated for Best Picture. From Adrian Brody's Oscar-nominated performance as Hungarian Jewish architect Laszlo Toth to the spellbinding cinematography, The Brutalist builds upon its themes in every frame. The Brutalist's epilogue is central to this theming. While the main plot wraps up in the late 1950s, the final act of the film, Epilogue, the first architecture biennale, is set in 1980. In its final moments, The Brutalist expands its scope from a single architectural project of Laszlo S. to an entire lifetime of work. These final scenes completely reframe the conflict of The Brutalist, showing Laszlo S.'s ability to rise above what seemed like insurmountable traumas, and the film would be incomplete without them. Interestingly, however, some of the central characters in The Brutalist are absent in the epilogue. Harrison disappears after being accused of raping Laszlo. Ursabit calls Harrison out, and he is never seen again. Adrian Brody lights a cigarette in The Brutalist still. Perhaps the most startlingly absent character in the epilogue of The Brutalist is Laszlo Toth's patron, Harrison Lee Van Buren Sr., Guy Pearce. In Part 1 of The Brutalist, Harrison serves as Laszlo's patron in more ways than one. He not only hires Laszlo as an architect and houses him on the Van Buren estate, but Harrison also introduces Laszlo to the lawyer who brings Laszlo's wife Ursabit, Felicity Jones, and niece Sophia, Raffi Cassidy, to America. In the beginning, Harrison seems like he might be the greatest thing to happen to Laszlo in years. This does not last. In Part 2, their relationship first falls apart when Harrison terminates Laszlo's construction project and becomes unsalvageable when Harrison rapes Laszlo in an Italian cave. While at first, it seems like Laszlo will never see any justice, Ursabit interrupts one of Harrison's dinner parties to publicly accuse him of rape. It is this confrontation that causes Harrison to first run out of his mansion and, apparently, The Brutalist itself. Whether it is guilt, shame, or something else that drives Harrison away, once Ursabit turns her back on him, he is never again on screen. The Brutalist's epilogue completely ignores Harrison's fate. And it wouldn't work any other way. Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones sitting together at a dinner table in The Brutalist. The fact that Harrison is not mentioned in the epilogue of The Brutalist is exceptional. While Harrison is not the only character absent in the epilogue, his is the only absence that goes unremarked. Ursabit, for example, is also missing. Ursabit's absence, however, is explained by a middle-aged Sophia. Ursabit evidently passed away some years earlier. The loss of Ursabit is explained and is meaningful, but the loss of Harrison apparently needs no explanation. In terms of screen time, Harrison was a more prominent character than Ursabit. In terms of the world of The Brutalist, the unimaginably wealthy Harrison Lee Van Buren Sr. was also certainly more prominent than refugee and Holocaust survivor, Ursabit. And yet, in the end, Harrison's absence is unremarkable, whereas Ursabit is mourned. The reason for this is obvious. Despite Harrison's immense wealth, power, and prestige, his contributions to Ursabit and Laszlo's life are, ultimately, unimportant. The establishing shots of the epilogue show all the other libraries, community centers, churches, and synagogues that Laszlo has built in his decades of success. Although the Van Buren Community Center is an important part of Laszlo's lifetime accomplishments, the Van Burens themselves are not. Most of his success came afterward, and the powerful man who kept Laszlo under his thumb for years does not even merit a footnote. So, although it is surprising at first that Harrison is not mentioned in the epilogue, it really wouldn't make sense for him to be there in the end. Did Harrison die in The Brutalist's ending? There are no clear answers, but signs point to yes. Just because Harrison did not deserve recognition in the epilogue and ending of The Brutalist does not erase lingering questions about what happened to him. And, of course, the looming question is whether Harrison is dead. In Harrison's final scene, he is accused of rape and is seemingly unable to respond. His son, Harrison Lee Van Buren Jr., or Harry, Joe Alwyn, physically throws Ursabit out of the Van Buren dining room, but when he turns back to Harrison, his father is gone. Although Harry searches both the property and the community center, he is not able to find his father. Part 2 ends with a shot panning up from a marble altar in the church Laszlo built to the cross in the ceiling. Metaphorically, the altar and the cross both suggest that Harrison has met a mortal fate. They are symbols of lethal religious sacrifice, and it is with a meditation on those deadly symbols that Harrison's story ends narratively. It also makes sense for Harrison to be dead. He is wealthy and well-connected and clearly works with the sort of people who might sponsor any of Laszlo's future projects. But, in the epilogue, there are pictures of all the buildings Laszlo designed, and the captions of those pictures reveal that he kept working in America. Ursabit's outburst would have made Harrison an enemy, and he would have been perfectly capable of taking revenge. The very fact that Laszlo went on to have a successful career suggests that Harrison died before the end of the Brutalist.